Hi, Dave here, and today we're going to check out the work of Scott Gadille. Gadille. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, but I do like Scott's work. I believe I found his work through ArtStation, the main page. One of his posts or paintings were featured, or sketches, I think, was featured on the homepage, and then I just stumbled upon his work. And yeah, he does have a very interesting style. I would put Jeff Simpson along with Scott Gadille because they're both somewhat experimental and fine art-ish. I did an art review of Jeff Simpson as well, and at the same time, I would put Scott along with Flaptraps. Um, I believe his real name is Richard Anderson. Hopefully, I'm remembering his name right. Both Flaptraps and Jeff Simpson both have that. If there's something in common with their work, it's their abstractness. Like there's this abstract type of feel in their work. It's not necessarily mixed media. I mean, there's a bit of that, but there's this. There's a look to their work that's super similar, and you'll see it in Scott's work as well. So if you're interested in that kind of experimental abstract style, I would recommend Flaptrap's paintings, Jeff Simpson's paintings, and Scott's paintings and his sketches. He does go rogue often with his sketches. I believe he's experimenting with some kind of app. I remember using that app before. It's a sketching app. And sometimes he likes to experiment with those kind of brushes specific to that app. But you'll see the same kind of feel or approach even when he's using some kind of or a different kind of brush in maybe Photoshop or something. But yeah, so he's based in, again, Austin, Texas, USA. Yep. So this is an example of his sketches. His earlier sketches reminds me a bit of Anthony Jones, like the way he paints. Lots of organic forms. And yes, Scott likes to focus more on organic forms. And he does do environments. You can see here, if you go back just a bit, sometimes he'll dabble in or on environments or with environments. And you can definitely see more of that abstraction in his work. And yes, he is a bit like Satish Kumar. If you check out Satish Kumar's environments, they're a bit moody. And I do feel the same way, or I feel somewhat moody when I look at Scott's environments. They have the same feel, essentially. Moving on, we have this guy. It's a bit abstract. Reminds me a bit of one of the sketches of Anthony Jones. And a lot of Scott's creatures are or have the humanoid form. He doesn't go or veer too far away from the humanoid form. He's not doing fish or anything like that. He likes to stick to just the humanoid, somewhat zombie-ish like forms. Or yeah, like dead zombies types of bodies. And they're somewhat eerie. There's an eeriness to his work just because of the subject matter is a bit weird and dark, almost dark. And yes, a lot of his sketches are in grayscale, which I do find interesting. You don't have to always sketch with color because it can waste time. If you're trying to just get the idea down, grayscale is the best way to go. It's faster and you save time, obviously. And you can see if you zoom in, lots of abstraction going on. If you zoom out, you can kind of get the gist of it because you're seeing it as a whole. But if you zoom in, you can see more of that, in a way, impressionism in his work. But it's more abstraction for me. Pretty cool stuff. Here we have one of his environments. Now, yes, he does photo bash, but I do like the way he photo bashes. It's not very clean, like matte painting clean. It's a quick concept. And I do like this kind of look where you can see the blending modes being used or the layer blending modes being used. Maybe soft light, multiply. Feng Zhu does the same thing, although Feng Zhu will paint over it heavily. If you check out any of his videos, he paints over it with his famous flat brush. And yeah, even in this scene, it looks cool. It looks moody. I believe Phineas McManus has a tutorial on his ArtStation or Gumroad, and he was painting this sort of underwater world, and it has the same vibes or vibe as this piece, or as style as that's the same vibe as the style of Scott whenever he does his environments. There's a lot of this blending mode effects. It's hard to see in Scott's work uh, if he's doing his black and white stuff or his black and white sketches, just because it's black and white. You're not going to see a lot of that blending mode effects. But with his colored stuff, especially with his environments, you'll see more of it. So here we have more of that. I think he started with a grayscale sketch of it, and then he added some photos to just add a bit of effects or texture to the whole piece. And he was pretty good with the grayscale in the beginning. It pretty much determined the mood. Everything else, like the color and the texture, just kind of adds more to it. And you'll see with the forms, very, very abstract. It feels like he's using some kind of, I'm guessing, lasso tool for his work. Lots of big, swooping, almost veil-like strokes. Same thing here. Lots of natural landscapes. He's less sci-fi, more organic forms, more natural forms in his work. Here we have maybe some spacemen, where they're exploring some kind of weird radioactive environment. And the photo bashing isn't too clean, but it's enough. You can tell in the area in light, there's going to be way more texture. And as you go further away, or if you're kind of in a darker zone, you don't need much texture. It's pretty much just a silhouette for the most part. And it looks nice. And it does have that nice cinematic frame. Same thing here. Very, very loose mood paintings. Even this guy, it's just a simple... I'm guessing this was done with a lasso tool. And it works better if you zoom out. Because obviously it's not finished, but it gets the mood. Here we have more of that. This one with a bit more texture. Very, very organic, volcanic, I think, in a way. I'm not sure if he's using any custom shapes. I don't think so. I think he just likes to stick to his abstract painting kind of approach and some basic photo bashing just to add a bit of texture and color. Same thing here, very, very loose. Here we have some mountain texture, but that's pretty much it. Everything else was done by hand. And maybe a bit of the color choices was his, and then he just added this texture. Interesting. I've seen another artist that paints in this way, but I can't remember his name or her name. So maybe I did an art review of his work as well. I would put Finian McManus as well. He does have a lot of, like, he does have a few pieces where his work does look a bit like this. And I believe one more Russian guy, Mark something. Oh god, but again, you can see that abstraction. You can see a lots of broken shapes in his work. It's not very formy, not rendered, but it's a mishmash of a lot of broken shapes. So maybe that's how I can describe his work, broken shapes. But well placed. Oof, wow. Here we have another, I think it's somewhat feminine. Some indication of the boob. I believe she's wearing some kind of helmet, or maybe that's her head. She's some kind of alien, perhaps. Who knows? But again, broken shapes, lots of broken shapes. Kind of unclean, but it's well placed. And you'll see it in Jeff Simpson's work, where he pulls a lot of the forms to the side, or shapes. And it does look like an oil painting sometimes when you look at Jeff Simpson's work. The only thing, or the only reason why Scott's work does not look like an oil painting is because there's a lack of that gritty canvas-esque texture. But if you did add that texture, if Scott did add that bit of texture, it's going to look more like a fine art kind of thing, I think. Here we have something underwater, perhaps. It feels like it. Very, very moody. It feels like it was quickly done. I would consider this a good speed painting. Because whatever this thing is, it feels natural and real. So he does have way more of these sorts of stuff. I do think he's using some kind of program to achieve this variation of strokes. And maybe that's why he picked it, just because it fits his personality. That's my guess. He's very experimental and somewhat abstract. And maybe he does start. I mean, look at this series of strokes here. I remember using this. I forgot the program name for this, or the program name. Excuse me. He's using some kind of program in some kind of app, like an iPad app, perhaps, or Android app. And then maybe he does further work on top of that in Photoshop. That's my guess. And sometimes he will dabble in 3D with Blender, but that's not his main thing, just based off of his portfolio. But you can see lots of abstraction in his work. Now this one we have more color. Same thing, abstraction, humanoid form, broken shapes, but well placed. And the way he colors, it's a bit almost like watercolor. It's not clear, like a lot of the colors bleed with the colors next to it. So it looks kind of muddy, but it's not bad muddy. It's like watercolor muddy. Whenever you do like a wash in traditional watercolor, it has the same kind of feel here. So moving on. So here we have more of those abstract sketches, black and white, skull-esque face or heads. This one is more freaky. It has an eel-like head, I think. But look at how good that looks. It's so pretty. Again, broken shapes. It's a bit almost like a collage in a way. But it's not made with photos. It's because of this specific brush, and I think maybe the lasso tool was being used sometimes. I'm not sure. Hard to say. Pretty cool stuff. Lots of hue variation. So different designs for a sword. Reminds me of the approach of Flap Traps or Richard Anderson. Mr. Anderson. Anyway. So this one does look more like a fish. But his main thing or his main topic of interest is this humanoid form. Usually a bald guy with some disfigured forms. Another environment. Now I think this one's a bit different, I think. It feels slightly more different. And it helps if you layer stuff, because you can't achieve this with one layer. It's not possible. And it's pretty obvious. Now for these sorts of sketches, I think he does do it in one go. Because it looks so direct to me compared to, I feel like he plans more of his environments than the black and white sketches. They're more kind of off the fly or off the cuff, while the environments have a bit more planning. Oh, here I think we have a grayscale version of this guy. Let's zoom in here. So we can see a bit of that initial rough sketch, and then as we go further down, so he does keep it simple. He'll start with a grayscale, a rough sketch along with a silhouette, and then maybe he'll paint within that selection, kind of making it more 3D, and then he'll do the color phase. And again, the way he colors, it's not Uh, Clean. It's a bit washy, watercolor-esque. The hues bleed with each other, and it has that soft, almost airbrush type of feeling. Nice face though. Very aggressive looking. Same thing here. A bit of a rough sketch in the beginning, initial sketch. Paint over, but the way it's colored, it's a bit washy or watercolor esque. He left the other eye simple, like it's washed out, and then he defined this eye. Here we have more. Oh, this one's pretty cool. I like this one way more. This one's my favorite. This one's okay, but I don't know. I like this one. So it has a bit of that Predator Yatwa design, where you have the strong mandibles, but it's way more aggressive. It's almost like a tusk at the same time. Pretty badass. He did go into more detail here, I believe. It's still somewhat abstract, but there's a bit more sculpting involved. And I think this is one of my favorite pieces of his, or pages of his. Grrr. Anyway, here we have more experimental stuff. It feels somewhat Soviet-esque, radioactive types of concepts. Now this one, the colors are a bit, or they're a bit more defined, but it's still not as clear. It still bleeds with the color next to it. But it is way more defined than his usual stuff. But again, the abstraction is still there. Humanoid form with the experimental radioactive elements involved. Nice. Some more sketches of his, grayscale. It's nice. I think he does have an Instagram as well, and it's nice seeing this once in a while. Because he has his own unique style, which is pretty cool. And the thing is, it takes time to figure out your own style. And I think it's pretty well known for this sort of effect. The broken shapes, that's well placed type of thing. Amazing. When it comes to the broken shape stuff, he's very similar to Richard Anderson. So that's pretty much my only advice, is to check out Richard Anderson's work as well, and you can see the similarities. Although Richard Anderson likes to play more with harder edges, or Scott is way more organic than Richard Anderson. He's a bit more sci-fi, the Flaptraps Richard Anderson person. Scott is more organic, also sci-fi sometimes. It's sci-fi-esque, but it's heavily on the fluid, dynamic, organic side. Here we have a babe, a demon babe without a face. That's freaky. And a demon guy with some huge horns. And look at how he defined the face way more. And it has this sharp decline in terms of detail, and it looks good. I remember seeing it in one of the Art Academy videos, I believe by Steve Houston, and he mentioned how a good sketch is where you just focus on a certain percentage of a sketch, and then you sketch that or add just more detail in that one part, and then you let everything just fade into the page, and that's what makes a good sketch. And it looks good. You can do it with a painting, with whatever, a rendering, whatever. Here we have variations of some kind of zombie person. So he copied one guy and then painted on top of that initial painting. Here we have a chick. Very, I believe it's a woman. Like a mummy, perhaps. Demon King or Witch, hard to say. Very, very dark stuff. This one's more of a photo bash of an environment. Again, moody, nice placement of textures, natural landscapes. Well done. Cinematic as well. And the lighting is pretty good. It's not graphic. It's not like a graphic sketch. It's more of a keyframe. Like I can imagine this scene being in a film. So whenever he does his environment, I feel like he invests more time in setting the mood compared to his black and white sketches. Here we have another guy with humanoid person with some arachnid legs, perhaps. This one's nice. Grayscale, it's a bit more contrasted, and more gouache. Well, not gouache, but it's more opaque rather. Because he likes to leave a lot of white spots or white openings in his sketches. But this time, he did fill up the sketch a bit more. So it looks more opaque. I do like the blending he did here. I'm not sure how he did it. Did he pull it with a smudge tool or mixer brush? Hard to say. Maybe. But it looks nice. Same thing here. So this one is more of his line work sketches. And you can see with the way he does his line work, it's a bit abstract as well. It's not very clean or gestural. It's a bit gestural, but it has an abstract element to it. Like there's this quick, sharp, quick turns or quick points. And you'll see it in the way he does his painted stuff as well. Or whenever he's using that specific program. Same thing here when he's doing his inks. Very, very abstract. Here we have, I'm not sure what this thing is. It's some kind of person, I think. The hair is kind of weird, or the head has this protruding part. This is the eye, I believe. Very, very interesting. I do like the signature thing here. Makes it look unique as hell. And I think he's using the same freaking program. I forgot the name of it, but I remember trying it on my, I believe, Samsung tablet before, and it felt amazing. But yeah. Here we have more line sketches, very, very abstract. Again, humanoid forms, lots of anatomical details. Well, not too much, but enough. And it has the Jeff Simpson vibes. He does a lot of human anatomy centered stuff as well. Mr. Simpson. Here we have another environment scene. Again, a natural landscape. The photo bashing is enough. Well done. It's not as moody or as dark. It's a bit more... I mean, the place is still somewhat foggy and mysterious, but it's not as dark compared to his usual stuff. I'm not sure what that's about. Maybe it's a personality thing. Oh, I think he did have a grayscale of this. Let's see it. I think, okay, it's this one. So I believe he does begin with a grayscale sketch or grayscale version. He determines the lighting in that or in this phase, and then he'll add the colors. Look at the way he colors stuff. The colors bleed with each other. Now that's just my guess. Because sometimes people do the colored, or they make a really rough grayscale sketch and then they'll start adding detail with some color, and then they'll just make a grayscale version of that just to show a different view of it, maybe. Because I've done it before as well. So it's not necessarily because of his process, but that's my guess. And it's pretty typical anyway to start with a grayscale sketch and then, or grayscale painting, and then add the colors later on. And most of his paintings or environment pieces are within one hue or within one family. It keeps it simple and not as dramatic. Or it keeps it dramatic actually. And it's not as confusing because if you add too many colors and you couple that with his style, I don't think it's going to work too much. So he has to, I guess, tone it down a bit with the colors and keep it simple, because he does go rogue with his style. But it looks amazing. Looks cool. Lots of broken shapes, but well placed. Okay, and this is the last piece we're going to review in his portfolio. It's some kind of ship that's been weathered down or broken, or it's on standby, perhaps. And I love the mood. Very, very atmospheric, foggy, some kind of light source from above, some wires to indicate wear and tear. I can see some kind of waterfall. So maybe this guy or this thing is in some kind of cliff, maybe. It's hard to say, but it does make you question things. You know, it makes you think about what this thing could be. And it actually does look interesting. So we're going to end this. So we're going to end this review of Scott Gadille's work. I do recommend you follow him on ArtStation, and I believe he also has an Instagram. So check out his work, and hopefully you're inspired to keep painting. And it's okay to be experimental, as you can see. If you just check out Scott's portfolio, you can be somewhat abstract and still achieve some decent looking paintings or sketches. So keep drawing, keep painting, keep learning, and stay free.